I still remember the exact moment my blood turned to ice and then to fire. It was a Saturday in late June, the kind of morning where the sun already felt like a branding iron by 9 o'clock. I stepped out onto the porch of the old white farmhouse my grandfather built in 1938, coffee steaming in one hand. And there they were, 31 strangers spread across my east pasture like they'd paid admission. Blankets, coolers, a portable speaker thumping some pop song I didn't recognize, and right in the middle stood Evelyn Harper, president of the Willow Ridge Homeowners Association, waving at me with a champagne flute and a smile sharp enough to shave with. "Morning, Henry," she called, as if we were old friends. "Hope you don't mind us borrowing your meadow for a little community gathering." Meadow. That word stuck in my throat worse than a fishbone. This wasn't a meadow. It was 40 acres of bottomland my family had cleared, fenced, and bled for since before Willow Ridge existed. I'd spent the last 30 years of my life, 55 come November, keeping those fences tight and those pastures productive. And now Evelyn and her flock were treating it like a public park. I didn't answer right away. Just watched one of her friends toss an empty seltzer can into my cattle trough. The clang echoed across the field like a gunshot. Behind the north fence, my 35 Hereford Angus bulls shifted restlessly, ears flicking, nostrils flaring at the noise. They're quiet animals by nature, but they know when something doesn't belong. My name's Henry Whitaker. I'm a widower, a third-generation farmer, and the last man standing between suburban sprawl and the land my father taught me to respect. Evelyn Harper moved in 3 years ago, bought the biggest house on the cul-de-sac, and decided my farm was an eyesore that needed curating. She'd filed complaints about my barn lights, my early morning tractor, even the height of my mailbox. I ignored most of it. You learn to pick your battles when you're pushing 60 and the only thing keeping you company at night is the sound of wind through bur oaks. But this was different. This was trespassing with a side of arrogance. I walked the fence line that afternoon, checking posts and staples like I do every Friday. Found fresh footprints in the mud by the south gate, someone scouting. That night, my neighbor Tom, who rents the last house before my property line, texted me screenshots from the Willow Ridge Facebook group. Community Meadow Picnic, this Sunday. Bring blankets, wine, and your sense of adventure. Evelyn had commented, all arranged. Can't wait to enjoy our shared open space. Shared. That was the last straw. I spent the next morning moving the bulls into the east pasture with my hired man, Luis. "You sure about this, boss?" he asked, wiping sweat from his brow. "Dead sure," I said. "Lock every gate but the north one. Leave that latch loose." Luis whistled low. "That's a hell of a welcome mat." By 10 o'clock Sunday, the invasion began. SUVs lined the cul-de-sac, kids ran wild with ribbon wands. Someone set up a white tent with gold streamers. Evelyn arrived in a Mercedes convertible, white sundress fluttering like a flag of surrender she had no intention of raising. She grabbed a megaphone, yes, a megaphone, and announced, "Welcome to Willow Ridge's first annual meadow picnic." I stood on my porch, arms crossed, letting them settle in. Watched them park against my service road, watched a toddler climb my fence like it was jungle gym equipment. The bulls watched too, heads raised, tails switching. At 11:42, I walked down to the north gate, flipped the latch, and stepped back. "Feeding time, boys," I called softly. The first bull, big red, 1,500 pounds of muscle and bad attitude, trotted through the opening. Then another. Then the rest. 35 tons of beef on the hoof, moving like a red tide across green grass. The music cut out mid-chorus. Someone screamed. Coolers toppled. A woman in linen pants tried to vault a folding table and landed in potato salad. Evelyn dropped her megaphone and ran, hat flying, sandals slapping dirt. She reached the gate and rattled it like a jailbird. "Open this, Henry. Open it now." I leaned against a fence post, calm as Sunday morning. "You said this was community property, Evelyn." Figured the bulls were just mingling. Behind her, the herd formed a loose circle, snorting, pawing, not charging, just making their point. A man in a pastel polo tried to reason with Big Red. Got a face full of dust for his trouble. Kids wailed. Someone's phone flew into the creek. The bounce house collapsed when two dads dove through the mesh at once. I let it run 90 seconds, long enough for the lesson, short enough to keep it legal. Then I pulled the air horn from my belt and gave one sharp blast. The bulls stopped like soldiers at attention, turned, and ambled back through the gate. I latched it behind them, slow and deliberate. Evelyn stood panting on the safe side, dress streaked with mud, hair escaping its bun in frantic wisps. "You could have killed us." "You cut my lock," I said. "You brought 30 people onto private land. You're lucky nobody got hurt." She opened her mouth, closed it, then stormed off without another word. The rest followed, dragging coolers and dignity in equal measure. One guy left a loafer stuck in the mud. I left it for the crows. Monday morning, the sheriff pulled up in his cruiser. Big Jim Grady, mustache like a push broom, boots older than my truck. "Got a complaint, says you tried to murder half the neighborhood with livestock." I handed him a flash drive. "Got 8 angles, says they trespassed first." He watched 30 seconds of footage, chuckled, and shook his head. "Henry, you always did have a flair for teaching." By Tuesday, the HOA board voted Evelyn out. By Friday, their insurance cut a check for 14 grand. Fence repairs, cleanup, livestock disturbance. I replaced the east fence with steel posts and an electric latch. Added a new sign, "Private property. Trespassers will be introduced to the committee." Word spread. The video hit 1 million views. Farmers sent letters. City folks sent memes. Evelyn sold her house and moved 2 counties over. The new HOA president, a retired mailman named Dan, brought peach cobbler and an apology note I still keep on the fridge. These days, folks wave when they drive past. Kids ask polite questions about the bulls instead of climbing the fence. The pasture's quiet again, just the way my father liked it. And every evening, when the sun sinks behind the oaks and Big Red lifts his head to low across the field, I raise my coffee mug to him. Respect, like good soil, has to be tended. Cross the line, and sometimes the land answers back. What do you think? Was I right to let the bulls teach the lesson, or did I cross a line of my own? Drop your take in the comments. Ever had someone trample your boundaries and wish you'd handled it differently? Tell me your story. I read every one.